Elena Foster didn't mind the quiet. She minded the silence. The difference had crept up over the years, when the laughter of children became the occasional slam of a bedroom door, when Caleb's voice, once warm with stories and grocery list humor, dulled into half-heard phone calls and budget talks. Their house still thrummed with life, technically. But it felt like a distant hum behind thick walls. She sat by the back window every morning with a lukewarm cup of tea and watched the trees that framed the edge of their yard. Beyond those trees was a strip of untouched land, technically public, technically forgotten, a half-wooded patch that no one seemed to notice but her. Years ago, it had been fenced, then ignored. Local teens sometimes whispered about it. Elena had once heard Leo call it, the grove that eats cell signals. The name made her laugh. Quietly, of course. She didn't laugh out loud much anymore. That morning, the trees whispered. Not in the poetic sense, Elena didn't imagine voices in rustling branches. But something about the breeze felt deliberate, like it had purpose. Like it had a message only she might hear if she stayed still long enough. And so, she did. Caleb had already left for work. Nora was wrapped in her morning chaos, matching socks, missing mascara, mood swings like weather. Leo, the stoic, was calm and monosyllabic, managing to eat cereal and scroll through news about some global protest at the same time. Neither of them noticed Elena watching the grove. They rarely noticed what she watched anymore. After they left, Elena rinsed her mug, slipped on a windbreaker, and stepped out the back door. She hadn't walked into the grove in years. There was no trail, just memory. She moved through brush and wild grass, boots pressing down dew-kissed weeds. The air held a chill, not quite winter but too bold for spring. Every sound felt louder here, the crunch of leaves, the distant croak of a frog, her own breath. The grove didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. Near the middle stood an old stone bench, moss clinging to its legs. She remembered it vaguely, someone had hauled it out here decades ago, maybe when the neighborhood was new. She brushed off the top and sat, breath fogging faintly. That's when she saw it. A scrap of paper, tucked under a stone. Crisp white, deliberate. She hesitated before reaching for it. The paper was folded neatly, sealed with a pressed wildflower. On the inside, in elegant handwriting, asterisk if you are reading this, then you heard it too. This place remembers. Some memories leave footprints. Follow them. Asterisk no name. No date. Elena read it twice. The words stirred something in her chest. Not fear. Not even curiosity. More like recognition. The kind of feeling that arrived when a scent, a song, a glance pulled the past out of hiding. She looked around. Nothing moved. But the wind tugged gently at her coat sleeve. She stood. The rest of the morning was filled with normal things. Laundry. Emails. A call to Nora's school about a band fundraiser. But her thoughts looped back to the note. She didn't mention it to anyone. That night, Caleb noticed her distracted silence. Everything okay? She nodded. Just tired. He leaned over and kissed her forehead. You work too hard. She smiled, soft and practiced. He meant well. He always had. But something inside her stretched too thin lately, like the smile itself was a costume. In bed, while Caleb read on his tablet and the kids bickered over shower time, Elena looked at the ceiling and whispered, some memories leave footprints. The next morning, she went back. This time, she brought a small notebook. Not the pretty floral one for recipes, not the grocery pad stuck to the fridge, an old spiral-bound leftover from Leo's middle school days. She jotted down the words from the note, then began wandering. The grove was larger than she remembered. She found a rusted wind chime hanging from a broken branch, its sound faint but musical. A string of faded beads dangled from a low tree. Someone had been here. More than once. It felt like she had stepped into someone else's memory. By the third visit, she brought a thermos of tea. Sat longer. Drew little maps in her notebook. She traced circles where odd objects appeared, a cracked marble, a leather shoelace tied to a twig, a pair of feathers knotted together with twine. Each item felt placed. It was on the fourth day that she saw the figure. Far off, near the tree line, someone moved. A tall silhouette, coat flapping, stepping between the shadows like they belonged to him. Elena ducked instinctively behind a tree. She watched. The figure didn't come closer. He paused near the stone bench, then placed something there and disappeared into the deeper grove. She waited. Counted to 60. When she approached the bench, her heart thudded in her ears. Another note. Asterisk, you're not imagining this. Some places don't forget the ones who listened. Keep listening. Asterisk, no name. No address. Elena looked into the woods. The man was gone. But she wasn't scared. For the first time in ages, she felt noticed. Not for dinner being on time. Not for new toilet paper magically appearing. But for being present. She returned home with dirt on her jeans and color in her cheeks. Nora squinted at her. You go hiking or something? Something like that. Leo didn't look up. Caleb smiled absently. Glad you got outside. That night, Elena sat by the window with a new tea blend she'd picked out on a whim. Ginger and lemongrass. It tasted like something unfamiliar. She thought about the notes, the objects, the man. And she wondered, had someone been waiting for her to notice this place? Or had she been waiting to remember it existed? The next time Elena returned to the grove, she came with intention. No longer just a wanderer or curious observer, she carried with her a small canvas satchel filled with sensible things, gloves, a garden trowel, a thermos of sweet mint tea, her notebook, and a flashlight. The grove no longer felt like just a patch of woods. It was a place now, a place she belonged to, or that belonged to her. The air that morning was softer, as though spring had made a tentative agreement with winter. There was light in the way the mist lifted off the ground, and Elena felt herself walk differently, not lighter, but more solid. Grounded. She followed the familiar path, marked now by the subtle trail of her own previous steps. At the bench, there was no new note, but something else waited for her, a name etched faintly into the stone itself. Lucian. It wasn't fresh. The carving had been weathered, old. Covered in moss she hadn't noticed before. She wiped it clean with her glove. Lucian. She whispered it to herself. There was something soft and foreign about it, something unfinished. She looked around. No sign of the man today. Elena sat, pulled out her notebook, and wrote the name in bold at the top of a page. She circled it, underlined it twice. Then she began to sketch the area around her. Not artistically, but to remember, the trees with the hanging beads, the bench, the small clusters of oddly placed stones, the faint outline of what looked like a garden bed. A garden. That was new. She knelt beside it. The dirt was dry, untouched for years. Yet something grew near the center, a single green shoot, delicate and unexpected. Elena brushed dirt away with care. It wasn't planted recently. No footprints. No trowel marks. Just a lonely, emerging plant. She stayed for hours that morning. She didn't even realize how long until her phone buzzed. A message from Caleb. Everything okay? You didn't leave a note. Elena stared at the message. Then typed back, sorry. Got caught up walking. Will be home soon. She didn't explain further. Caleb didn't ask. Later that evening, after dinner and after Leo disappeared into his headphones and Nora declared herself emotionally wrecked from school drama, Caleb approached her in the kitchen. You've been different lately, he said, reaching for the dish rag. Elena glanced at him. Different how? I don't know. Just awake, maybe? You smile more. But it feels like you're far away sometimes. She considered how to answer. I found a place. Just past the trees. I've been spending time there. Like a trail or something. Not quite. It's more like a grove. It's quiet. Peaceful. Caleb nodded slowly. If it's helping you, I'm glad. He kissed her temple and went upstairs. The conversation felt oddly easy, and that made her uneasy. As if the version of herself he accepted had limitations he wasn't prepared to confront. Over the next few days, Elena returned again and again. On her 6th visit, she found another note. This time, it wasn't left at the bench. It was pinned to a tree with a simple wooden tack, just below eye level. We used to plant here. The soil still remembers. Dig carefully. She stared at the message for a long time. This wasn't a game. The handwriting was the same, elegant, precise, but the tone had changed. Less ethereal, more rooted. That day, she brought gloves and the garden trowel. She dug along the edges of the shallow bed. Her fingers trembled with the care of someone touching sacred things. First, she found glass. Tiny shards, smooth and round, sea glass, maybe. Then a rusted tin box with a broken hinge. Inside it, a faded photograph of 3 people standing by a tree. 2 women and a man. One of the women looked startlingly like Elena. Her breath caught. She flipped the photo over. Written in ink, blurred with age, L, J, and me. Spring 1986. Planted marigolds. She said they kept secrets in the petals. There was no signature. But the handwriting was unmistakably Lucien's. Elena sat down on the bench, the photo trembling in her fingers. Who were these people? Was this a game? A message meant for someone else? She returned home shaken. For the first time, she didn't sleep well. The next day, she asked her neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, about the grove. The older woman had lived on the street since the late 70s. Oh, that old plot? Wasn't always so overgrown. Used to be a sort of community space, Mrs. Delaney said. A few families planted things there. Herbs, flowers. It got messy once people moved away. I think a man named Lucien lived down the hill. Strange fellow. Nice enough. He moved after something happened. What happened? Elena asked. There was an accident. Some girl got lost. Hurt. People stopped going after that. Do you remember who? Not really. Just that she was quiet. Always writing in little notebooks. You remind me of her, actually. Elena smiled politely, but her stomach twisted. She returned to the grove with new eyes. She imagined children playing here. People laughing. A younger Lucien digging into the earth with his hands. Maybe that bench hadn't always been moss-covered. She laid the photo down in her notebook and drew the tree in the background. She wanted to find it. She needed to find it. And she did. Farther into the grove than she had walked before, past a narrow creek and a wall of hawthorn bushes, the tree waited. Still tall, still twisted at the middle, like it had bent towards something long ago. She circled it, scanned the ground, and there, half buried in leaves, another tin box. Inside, a bundle of dried marigolds and a note. Asterisk, if you found this, you were meant to. The garden is not forgotten. And neither are you. L***.